We're getting ready to go live on the podcast.
Welcome to the Gray State Revolution. The Forbidden Ones are waking up. Now it's time to invoke a new revolution to the socialist scam to take over America and discover what it will take and what we can actually do about it to conquer the left. Direct from Ridge Runner Studios, here is your host, David Big Dave Ezel.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Gray State Revolution. This is the second live show of this podcast. And this podcast is not for the pansies or the snowflakes. This is a podcast for the awakened ones in America and across the globe. This is where I'm going to discuss what the Gray State is, the definition of the Gray State, and what that means to you. Just as an individual who only wants to live a free life, not impeded by anyone, but especially the government. Nobody in this country wants to live under the adage of by consent or conquest, and I'll be damned if we do. Let me interject at this point on this podcast. I've got some things to say here. This is not a call to arms yet. That is the last box we should ever have to open unless it's absolutely the last thing in our arsenal. First, we got to focus on our first objective, and that's the upcoming elections. Now, I'm fully aware that there's thoughts out there that our government will somehow, some way, try to enact a reason for us not to be at the polls. But we can't wait on that to see if that's going to happen. If that ever happens, then we already know. I don't have to say a thing. I won't have to say a word. We'll already know. We'll know exactly what it is. All I can say at this point to my listeners out there is to always be prepared. We're not here to discuss violent actions. We're not here to have violent reactions to what's going on. I think everybody did real well holding their cool this week. I know that having an FBI raid like that on a former sitting president is one of the hardest things in the world to do. I can't say that I'm not surprised that this, after Monday's actions, then they're going to try to push through a bill now on Friday that will give the government 87,000 more tax collectors with guns. And everybody's seen already the output of the qualifications to be that agent. And you're going to have to carry a firearm and use force if necessary. That doesn't sound like the IRS to me. That sounds like the Gestapo. LGBTQ. So I see who all of my reporters are for my videos. Y'all like losing? It must have been fun. I like the winning part. Uniformed police tax collectors is not really a new concept. Dictatorships have been using those for years. And I did say dictatorship because that's what it is. The government doesn't like you to dissent against it, so it uses its police force to get you. They're operating in a police state. Police state is called the Gray State. That's where we're at. The Gray State always appears just before a dictatorship. Our forefathers already foresaw this. The founders of our country were geniuses and gave us a way to fight it with everything, even peaceful solutions, before we have to do what we have to do. All I have seen so far with this process that we call our election process now is it showed us straight out that it was possible to steal an election. It didn't have to be one side or the other. Both sides are doing it. And if you have any doubts about that, go look up the Project Veritas report on the election thing with Murkowski, the rhino senator from the great state of Alaska. She's a rhino not only to the people of Alaska, but she's also a rhino to the United States. The only way I know how to fight that is call your local board of elections and see if there's going to be paper ballots in y'all's problem and the issue you've got, where they readily admitted that even if you chose number 2, number 1 would get the vote. Yogi, I know he had nuclear documents. It wasn't nuclear warheads either, but they were nuclear documents. So the people of Alaska, just fight, just stand your ground, stage your ground. That's what you're going to have to do. I'll explain all of it in a minute. I've got to let y'all know what the gray state is. So when you're in the gray state, they pass a lot of laws, and if they don't, they make a lot of executive orders. And then they use their arm of government to get you. It reminded me when Trump said, they're not out. First off, let me get something straight here. I am not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. I was a Republican, but they are a lot of talk right now and no action. I'm not a Democrat, but I don't think all the Democratic stuff is bad. Now, this liberal crap they got going on now, no. So I don't fit anywhere. So here I am here. You're correct, Ari, you're correct. You always vote in paper ballots. And I say that's what's coming this fall because I found a loophole to several little things doing my research. So if anybody studied history, you know that there's 4 boxes of dissent. They talk about them all the time. Nothing fits more now in this time in history than the 4 boxes of dissent. Right here, right now, I'll tell you, we are here for community organizations, and I use that term loosely. I mean, can anybody really say anything about being a community organizer, can they? I mean, we even had a community organizer that got elected to be the President of the United States. I mean, hallelujah, he showed us how to be a community organizer. So we're going to start with that. You think the people in the liberal side of support of the liberal government that we have now, you think they realize that they were put on notice by the UN and the United States government? I mean, the UN is hollering about disinformation. Well, what's disinformation? Who chooses the disinformation? Who gets to make the decision of what the disinformation is? That's the government. They get to decide the definition of disinformation. But the UN is worried about it too. So that doesn't make just any particular branch dissenters. They mean to everybody. They're not just talking about red or blue. They mean everybody that's a dissenter. Because if they can do a raid on a former president for no reason whatsoever under a sealed document, then they can do it to you with your local police forces. They always holler that federal law supersedes state law on some things, and it does. But what are you supposed to use? So we've been on the soapbox for 4 years. Everybody's been screaming and yelling about their side. That's fine. Everybody's got that right. We got a right to argue over our petty differences. That's what our country was made on. That's what we were founded on. But right now, if we want to keep being able to do that, we got to get our country fixed first. Our forefathers told us the second box was jury box. That means you can nullify the law. If somebody's being tried for a law, the jury, if they decide that's too much, the punishment don't fit the crime, they can nullify it. That's what it was designed for, to maintain the rules local in your area. Well, they'll lie to you and tell you that you can't nullify, but you can. So they've kind of taken the jury box away from us. They left the ballot box and a cartridge box. We all know what the cartridge box stands for. We all know what that means. And the veterans out there that seen war will tell you, you don't want a war. That's the last thing you want, period. You don't want armed dissent. It should be the very, very, very last thing you do. But when you get to a ballot box, we still have that. That's still peaceful. It's still controlled. Everybody tends to hold their thoughts to themselves. And it should be a sacred right. It is a sacred right. It's the most sacred thing you can do is vote. So what do you use to use the vote that they're going to steal the way we've got it set up right now? Well, you use what's at your disposal. I mean, they wrote the laws. They made the rules we have to live by. And if you decide you're going to do any of what I'm about to tell you that's available for you to do, you're going to have to use the rules you don't like, the rules you've stood against here. So, not a cult to Trump. I've already explained that, silly. You got to use what's at your disposal. If you're going to say you've got drop boxes in your city, well, they're public. They're on public property. They're all public. So, do like the people in Arizona did. It's your vote. Protect your vote. Go sit and watch those boxes. But you'll need a mask because you can't catch the vid, right? You'll need a mask on. And if anybody approaches you, they need to stay 6 feet away. Because we got to have that distance. That 6 foot distance from. I don't want to get the vid. That's why I got my mask on. Don't mail your vote in if you can keep from it. Period. We know that that's a way. That's a way to steal the vote, right? It's can call them watch parties. And I tell you what, if there's a local business in the area that has the same mindset you've got, you can ask them to sit up in their parking lot as long as you can watch the box. And don't let nobody know that's what you're doing. Watch the box. If you got a phone, you can video that. If something looks suspicious, video it. Don't know when it might need to be used. You don't know if you're going to catch something red-handed. You don't know if you're going to catch somebody with a truck full of ballot boxes stuffing the damn things. Because that's what we saw. And it's not just one side that can do it, folks. I want people to understand that. If one side is doing it, so is the other. I mean, they're there for themselves. They don't care about you. They don't care about, I'm going to say it. They don't care about the liberal thinkers in this country. They don't care about the democratic thinkers in this country. They don't care about the religious right. They don't care about you, right, center, moderates, Republicans, conservatives, constitutionalists, libertarians. They don't give a shit about you. They are only about themselves. It took them, when they first started this COVID stuff, it took them weeks to decide how much they was going to give everybody and how it was going to work, It didn't take them but 8 hours to pass a law to send billions of dollars to the Ukrainians and give themselves a 21% raise. They don't care about you folks. Quit taking up for them. Quit bellying up for the damn parties. George Washington said in his damn farewell address that the country, political parties are going to ruin the country. We had the same problem in 1850 when one party went defunct and there was nothing left but James Monroe and all of his blunderers. And that was supposed to be the era of good feeling. And these parties, hundreds of years later, are still trying to grab on to that era of good feeling by thinking one majority in the House is better than a majority in the Senate's better than this, and oh, it's dead even. It doesn't matter. They don't care about you. They act like they do, and they get real stuff. They get real good at just before election time trying to get stuff on you, for you, to you.
Can I come in?
So we've got that. Not ranked choice voting, Elliot. Congressional district elector votes. And that's the best way to do it. The local businesses, when you're watching these polls, maybe they'll let you sit up across the street. Maybe y'all can have a watch party. Somebody can bring pizza, or somebody can bring a grill and do it. If the owner of the lot is into it, feed him, feed his crew. Make a day of it, but keep your eye on that box. That'll drive them insane. See, every deceitful practice has a mathematical and a non-logical pattern to it. There are certain things you can count on every time. They've watched the cycles enough. We've kept it the same long enough. They know the cycles. They know how it works. So they know where to cheat at. But when they don't have an idea of what's going on, when they don't account for somebody calling for watch parties on these public boxes on public property, because all the rules protect you from being out in the public. You can be in the public. You just can't be drunk in the public, etc., etc. So when you do that, that throws off the numbers. Say they've got 18 ballots to go dump in one of there. But then you're watching, they know that there's people watching. Then people are apt not to do something wrong. So that's what they're doing. And I'm not saying one side or the other, both sides. Don't matter. If you want to get together and have a Democrat and a Republican get together and sit and watch them boxes together, hell, it's your election. You should want your vote to be sacred like that. You should want it to count for something, because the way it looks now is our government's been running selections for damn years and not elections. They couldn't account for all the votes in 2016 coming through the door, because they thought so many people would do it from home and mail and all that, they couldn't overcome the vote. There was no way for them to overcome the election that way. That's why Trump actually won that race. And nobody knew what we were doing with it.
There's somebody in the thing.
Son's leaving. So you got to overwhelm the ballot box, vote in person. If you don't trust the computer, ask for a paper ballot and watch it. And then for all of you that want to get in deeper involved in it, you go to your local RNC or DNC office and you sign up to be a poll watcher for that side, whatever side you're on. Because you got that right to watch them count the votes too. So then you can go in and watch them count the votes. Overwhelm the application process. Make them have so many at their disposal that you can watch more than one part of it. And then on election day, everybody asks for the day off. I mean, this government may probably pay if you get them to do it early enough. Hell, they might pass a bill and some of this shit they're sending to Ukraine that ain't getting there. Maybe they'll pass some money for that. Who knows? I've seen traveling the country for the work that I do. I get to travel all over. I've seen them have parties, election watch parties, where everybody gets together and watches I've watched them bet on local elections and stuff. And it's something I'm about to say that I don't think I've ever said before, ever pushed before, or ever mentioned before, and it seems stupid to me. I always said, they've always had this option to vote whatever party all the way down the ballot. Normally, that's stupid to me. It doesn't make sense, but desperate times, desperate measures, right? It's not fair to the people in the Democratic Party that are true Democrats that the liberals have done this to their party. I'll be the first to acknowledge it. A lot of that's very unpopular opinion, but I don't care. It's mine. I got that right to have my opinion. Because I remember a time in history where Democrats and Republicans could have something come up for the American public. And although views were different, everybody walked into a room, they gave and take, and they went in, and they came up with something that was for the American public and not the bureaucrats in D.C., not the lobbyists in D.C. And we can't get a hold of the government up there until we get a hold of the government where we live. I say vote for the one person opposite the incumbent in every race. Vote them all out. Oh, I'm going to answer this TikTok guy. Zachy, I just told you it wasn't an election, it was a selection. And apparently the selections have been going on for years. And I see y'all are in here talking about term limits. They not going to not have term limits. They not going to have it. The only way that we're ever going to get term limits in is either we flood DC with marchers, and we saw what that turned into. They got wind of it and made it an insurrection. I don't no more believe that was a true insurrection, because there was over 800,000 people on that front. If they wanted to overthrow the government, there were plenty of people to do it, and they didn't have it 600. That is not a coup. That's not an overthrow of the government at all. That is staged political bullshit. It's what that is. And both sides on that were guilty. Now, they're going to have a hard time explaining that to me, and where it makes sense to me, because it does not make sense. No, you don't need to vote third party. I'll tell you why in just a minute. They've already been working on it. I knew they were working on it. I mentioned something in another podcast and got contacted about it. And they asked me to take my podcast down. And if it wasn't for who it was that asked me, I wouldn't have done it. They've been working for over a year in all these races for the Trump candidates. Now, I'm going to say this. I loved Trump's policies. I loved the fact he was running it like a business. How it was intended to be. I loved it that he wasn't a save-a-ho president, where we go save-a-ho country, who only wants money from us, like the current ho we got. That's not a very popular opinion, but it's mine. You get to have yours too, and you can tell me about it. We've come to a point in our election process that we now have to decide if we're going to save our country and save our way of life. It's bigger than politics, folks. %70 of the electorate are independent. And that number is dwindling every day. See, I'm old enough to remember the last true presidential election landslide was Reagan and Mondale. I can remember that. That's when they realized that they were going to have to do something. But see, it was still the same old bunch in D.C. That was back in the days of Representative Montgomery from Mississippi, and Stennis was a senator from Mississippi. I forgot who the other ones were in the South that I remember, but I remember them too. But they were still the elite. They were still the globalists. They were still the party people. If we go through there and pick all these people that's never held a political office, all the way from the dog catcher to the governor to the national election part, if you go get all the non-incumbents in there, they get to start fresh. And I'm sure the lobbyists will swoop in like buzzards and try to buy them off, and that's normally what happens. But if you elect somebody from your community, they know what's going on in your community. And there's a good old boy network on one side of the old hats, of the old families, of all of that that's going on up and down the pipe. So if you know somebody or you're kin to somebody, they may not tell you out front. And not all of the elections are like this, but normally the ones that run get elected. I mean, Bush didn't in Texas he didn't get the nomination vote. But we've got to stop the good old boy network. There's one way to do it. That's to vote everybody out. Now, I can't get it done now. I'd have to have a 2-year plan ahead. But what we can do now is vote for the ones that we know is going to re-implement the agenda that we had before. I don't know about you, but I like having extra money to buy a steak instead of a hamburger patty. Now you got to realize people are having to buy Spam, if they can afford Spam. Everything this party has done is the playbook right out of the Communist Manifesto. It's a playbook right out of Nazi Germany. They want to hire 87,000 armed financial officers, 37,000 armed tax-paying police. Oh, we were sitting at his table going over his taxes, and he reached for that butter knife, so I had to shoot and kill him. And then take all of his money and leave. That is not the SS and the Gestapo. I don't know what it is. 8/8/22. That should be the day. Say, oh well, that's when they told us what they were really about, and that's being a regime, not being a political party. 8/8/22 should be a day you remember as a day the damn country had almost died. It was a knockout hit. It was a knockout punch. It was a straight message to all of us little folks down here on the bottom that we going for him and we coming for you. Trump told us. Trump told us. They're not coming for me, they're coming for you, and here they are. They're showing us that they're coming for us, and y'all still want to fight about abortion, and you still want to fight about who won what election. It don't matter. We're here now. You can have your personal thoughts about it. This is where we are. I don't care about all of the people mass blocking my stuff. I first degree was in English, and I know how to use my words, and you can try to say it's hate speech, but every time I ask a question, nobody has an answer for it. I made a post on TikTok this week that cited JFK's splintering the CIA and scattering it on the winds. And I say scatter, let's get the people in there and dissect and splinter all of the alphabet agencies and scatter them on the four winds. That's what it's going to take to get them out of our personal lives. We've lived in a police state so long, these generations younger than Gen Xers are lost without a police around. And they're going to sit there and holler about, oh no, you can't break up these police agencies because they're the ones that give you safety and security. By what? Safety and security by what? A ticket quota? An arrest quota? It's not right. And these local jurisdictions always pull people over because they're told to. I've had cops tell me they were told they had to make some money if they wanted to get paid. What are we've turned into a socialist country because we've been sitting at home being quiet And now when people get up and they're not going with what the minority... Do y'all realize that the liberal agenda is 1% of the population? We're letting 1% of the population that think it's a great idea to buy electric cars, and they can't even tell you where electricity comes from. They can't even tell you how electricity is made and what it is made from. It doesn't just appear. We don't have buckets out there catching lightning strikes. You still got to have coal and fossil fuels to make batteries. It costs more to make electricity than it does just to burn a gallon of gas. Like I said, I don't have popular ideas, but they're mine. If you don't, you don't have to listen to it if you don't like it. I'm used to trolls trolling me for everything. This ain't the first government watch list I've been on. We've let idiocracy override common sense. We've watched idiocracy override common sense. But as long as it didn't affect our gas tank, our wallet, or our family, we've sat at home and gave it nothing but lip service and done nothing about it. And now we're so far behind the 8 ball, everybody knows what's coming but scared to say it. Every platform in this country will block you if you say it. That means they've destroyed and taken away all of your rights guaranteed by the Constitution, guaranteed in the Declaration of Independence, guaranteed inside the Bill of Rights, and they've slowly and severely and tried to take them away from you. And when the Supreme Court turned it back over to you, the libtards went crazy. Now, liberals have a little bit of common sense. Libtards just lose their mind. And they wear the pink pussy hats to their stuff, thinking they're going to prove a point. You're getting laughed at. You're not proving a point. Now, the conservatives are just as bad. I am not an advocate of abortion. I don't think it should be used until a last-ditch effort of birth control. I don't think it should be an available option for birth control. But the religious right is trying to go after now the ways to keep you from having to go to not have an abortion. You can't get rid of one and try to get rid of everything that causes the prevention of that other. Now, you got to have some common sense. But don't run so far right now that you get a little back that the left, that you've talked about, the left has run so far left with. Now, yes, everybody's pushed it to the limit, but that's how children do. If they get an inch, they'll take a mile, quote unquote. I don't have to say that, and that's what the government's done to us. Now it's time for us to clean our crap up. It's time for the people to get together, organize, and figure out what to do. I can only tell you that if you're going to do it, you've got to work within the mode you've got. And you're going to have to be more than just conveniently attracted to the problem. You're going to have to do it. On the next live, I'll talk more about that and see where everything's going. I will have my regular episode this weekend on the Gray State Revolution. Y'all be able to find me on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, really. So everybody tune in and get that. I'm going to be out here, and I will continue on the live on TikTok and get more involved with my viewers and listeners. Everybody have a great week. I'll see you on the next episode.
This has been another episode from the Gray State Revolution. Join David again next week for a look into the past to see the future. Remember, when tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes duty. Download episodes from your favorite platform every week and follow Big Dave on TikTok at the Gray State Mafia.